No luck. We running slow? It's up.
I don't see it yet. Oh, there we go. No.
All right, good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. It's 10 a.m. We're here for a special session of the Hunt County Commissioners Court. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order. We have Commissioner Hutchins, Monroe, Martin, and Harrison present. I'm Judge Stovall presiding over the meeting. At this time, we'll have public testimony. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes and should conduct themselves in a civil manner. Commissioners Court cannot take action on items not listed on the agenda in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Concerns will be addressed by county staff. They may be placed on a future agenda or addressed by some other course of response. Does anybody here wish to speak to the court today? Anything online? All right, being none, I'll close the public testimony. We have no old business, new business. There's nothing on the consent calendar, action items. We got any accounting we need to take care of today? Okay. Number one, public hearing and discussion of a proposed FY 2024-2025 budget. I'll open it up to the public first. Anybody here or online that wishes to address the court? I'll now open it for public comments for or against this item. Being none, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, y'all got any discussion you want to talk about?
Judge, I have some.
Okay.
Thank you. A version of this was emailed out, I think early this morning by Daniel Ray. I appreciate his help. Since then, it has been modified slightly, not significantly. But I don't know if the court would like to discuss these, but just to sum it up, first page is just a spreadsheet of some reductions. They're mostly fairly minor to the budget. There's some like on, I think it was in the district attorney's budget, there was a $100,000 line item there for forensic analysis. And I remember that there had been a couple of years ago, or a year or two ago rather, an issue with the state law. Those could potentially require a bunch of testing. And so we budgeted for that in case that expense came back on us.
That's not exactly right. It's close, but it's not right. Sure. My recollection of it was that when we had to use the state, it took so long and it interfered with the timelines of going to trial. And they needed to have a faster service, and maybe some of it they couldn't get from the state. So I think it might have been a little bit of both of those.
Sure. Well, at any rate, I spoke to the district attorney about that, and he said it wasn't going to cause them any pain if we reduced that line item. I think he was under the impression it was going to be reduced. And so that's just an example that line item is a little bit more. Some of the others are a little bit higher as well. And they're just on here for this discussion, kind of a workshop format, if we want to do that today, or if we want to wait next week when we hear back from GrantWorks on the ARPA status. We could also wait until then. But I want to get this to y'all as fast as soon as I could. And then the second page is also something that we may need to wait till next week for further discussion. But I'm going through some of the line items that appear that we had adequate sums either in the existing capital improvement fund or to budget through the new budget to the capital improvement fund to put about, I recommended about $2 million into a road fund to be used in the manner we have in the past. But part of the reason for that is not only to make a lot of needed road improvements and upgrades, but also it could then be used to reduce some of the portion of the precinct material budgets that would be generated by new revenue through new taxes. And also, it would allow us to distribute an additional sum to Precinct 2, which we know is the fastest growing precinct. They've got a lot of pressure on their budget and their services down there. But it'll allow us to put some additional sums to Precinct 2, while also helping him to decrease the deficit in the new budget, so he can be moving positively in that difficult situation he inherited. So I wanted to put these things in writing for y'all to see, and we can talk about them now, or we can talk about them next week, whichever y'all prefer.
Any comments?
Yeah, I got a comment.
Okay.
Okay, I've been pushing basically in reference to ARPA money in the past, saying that we need to do some more. I don't agree with cutting anything basically from road material, because for the simple reason we're going to have it when all the ARPA money's gone, if this court decides that they will put money for road material in ARPA, which I don't believe the consensus of the majority of this court that that's going to happen. I do believe that we have other things, and I've voiced this in the past in reference to radios and stuff like that, and I think that does need to be addressed. I think it's a little too late in reference to ARPA money being spent, because I believe it's already been accounted for. But anytime, what the people are forgetting, or what's being forgotten, is that if you cut, we only get $53.75 out of a $290 out of the $900 tax rate. That don't buy nothing. We should have had the ARPA money, if we were going to put it over there, a long time ago, to where it could be used. As far as the other things that are on here, I just got this. I hadn't had the opportunity to look at it. I noticed that on the bottom of it, this all has to do with grant and what we can do with it, and which on the matter at the 9/10/24 meeting, evidently they're going to come before us and talk to us about it. So I guess all that's kind of in limbo. But when you start, we have had probably the poorest. Basically, we're getting up to where we can do something, but yes, we do need more money. But I noticed a lot of this stuff, and like I said, I hadn't had that long to look over it. It has to be looked at again, but we should have done the ARPA money a long time ago, and I understand that we did. I think it was last year and the year before. But that's about all I have, and I guess grants. I do have one question, since we can talk about it, because we talked about the grant people coming in all this time and advising what we can legally do and not legally do. But I thought, and maybe I'm going to ask Aaron to look into this, when ARPA money is used in reference to something, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be, you can't get a government grant to associate with that ARPA money in reference to different stuff. I've read it somewhere, and in fact, I was looking up the paperwork, but is that true, that if you use ARPA money that you can't go out and get another federal grant to assist it? So if you would kind of look that up, I'd appreciate it. That's about all I have to say.
Anybody else? Well, I got a few comments. It's the first time I've seen it, just going through it quickly. Facilities, you're commenting about they're historically high. You know, we got old buildings. The courthouse will be 100 years old in 5 years. This building, 40-something years old, 2217 Washington, I guess that's the ag extension facilities. That thing's a nightmare down there. You never know, all of these, you never know when we're gonna have something happen, and we need budgetary authority to fix it when it happens. We can't predict it if it might run over those budgets in 1 year. So, I have a problem with trying to adjust that because we don't have a crystal ball. We can't project the future. The lobbying and influence is $20,000. You say there's no need for this line item. Well, there's absolutely a need. State law says if we go to Austin for a meeting during the legislature, we have to report that as lobbying. So when we go down for Hunt County Days, when we go down to have TAC at the Capitol, we go down to, I'm on the legislative core group, if I have to go down and testify or whatever, it has to be shown there. Now, I don't know what it's going to cost. I don't know how many times we'll have to go. Some of that money will be spent, and maybe all of it, depending on how the session goes. But they passed it to say that now you have to budget it in that way, or you can't go to Austin, or you can't report it. You have to spend your own money or whatever, and I don't think it's fair to any of us to go down there and serve the people of Hunt County and have to do it out of our own pocket. I don't think you want to do that, Mark, and I don't want to do it. I don't want to do anybody. I don't think the public wants us to do that.
I'm not opposed to it, but I suppose it depends on how much we go down there, so that's fair.
The postage, I know we ran low on postage last year or this year. I don't know about the one in general administration. I'll have to check on that. The capital murder, you don't have the line item on?
It's the one that ends in 2133 on page 38.
38?
While you're looking that up, Judge, and regarding the maintenance stuff, I totally understand that they're old buildings and there are likely to be unforeseen expenses, but it seems to me that in looking at the budget, a lot of these line items essentially have a contingency built into the line item, but we can look at the historic numbers to see it is very unlikely that every one of those is going to need that contingency in a budget year. So I think a better approach might simply be to take an amount above what we think is likely to be the expenditures of that line item, put the sum into a contingency line item that can be used for any one of those, but then you consolidate and reduce the total amount needed in doing that. So you could take $100,000 worth of expenses, I'm just using a round number, it's easy, $100,000 worth of contingencies built into individual line items, and put $50,000 in contingency or something like that. And then, in so doing, you are reducing the total budget, and you still have a plenty sufficient contingency for if one or more of those items do need it. And that's in addition to the contingency line item we already have, which I think last year we budgeted $2 million in that.
Correct.
Maybe 2.2 million before. And it may have changed since printing and this is off the top of my head, the book's here. I think last I saw, we hadn't spent more than maybe two-fifths of that or so. It was under 50% of that. So there is a healthy contingency line item already that could be used for these sorts of things. I agree, we don't want to cut it too close, so sure, let's have a good contingency, but we don't need to build a contingency amount into a lot of different line items. That's my concern.
So on the capital murder expense, or you say add 200,000, it's under an add line item, if I read that right.
No, I'm sorry, when they printed it, kind of got off center, that's that line item.
What page is that, Judge?
Is that what it's supposed to be? Got 200,000? It's number 38 on the first sheet. I've talked to Judge Bench about it. And we can lower it some, there's no question. It's been there because of that one capital murder case that we had that took 8 years to have it, I think, Chad, do you remember? It's a long time. The one that fired all his attorneys, and we had a public defender taking care of him, and I mean, I think he was teaching everybody over at the jail how to get out of things, and how to make it last longer or whatever. So Judge Bench sentenced him to death a couple of years ago, a year or two ago, which was an automatic appeal. And so we have to hire attorneys for that automatic appeal. They hired one that was on the list to have capital murder qualifications. He was on it. They have apparently the Supreme Court or somebody has a list that says these people are qualified to do capital murder cases at the appellate judge court. Well, he files it and he charges us $80,000 for the filing. And during the time he was being hired for us, he was removed from that list. And so it's still in a little bit of a quagmire. Right now, the court's saying they're probably going to let him stay on, but Andy doesn't think that that's going to probably work out, might not work out. We may have to pay again for another one, and it's still got to go to trial, and we're going to have to pay those expenses. He said it's probably not going to get up to the 700, but and it's another one of those, don't know. I would probably be fine cutting it back to 500 or something, but I mean, there's a lot going on in that deal that could happen. Now, it might take 3 or 4 years to get to the point where it even has any money spent on it. I don't know,
Right.
But it's kind of something we just don't want to cut it back to too low, knowing that we have. I mean, that's an active deal going on. It's going to be money. It's going to be spent. I think $160,000 or something's been spent this year. I think already.
I think that's right, and I think it's currently budgeted at about 7 or 7.5, I forget which.
It was in there for several years that way because we didn't know, we didn't have to pay anything because it was being handled by our indigent defense attorney pool that we pay into. They were handling it, and he fired them over some goofy something. So then we had to go hire an attorney to represent him. And I think we had to hire 2 or 3 of them before we finally got him to trial. So he's been a real thorn to get through, and so he's still out there. So I left it alone for now. But if we want to lower that a little bit, I don't have any problem with that. I don't. Sure. Like I say, I think 200 is too small, but.
That was the proposed amount to cut, so that if we cut the 200.
200 would be 520, that's fine, okay.
I'd like to make this statement, all this, it's good to cut what we can, but we're working off of a crystal ball. We don't know what the future is.
Absolutely.
You have a population increase, there's no doubt about that, therefore you're going to have more crime and more needs. As far as having contingency, basically, if we're very smart, even our own bank book, we have hold-out money in case something happens. And I think that's been a good part in the past of what this Commissioner's Court has done, basically to make sure that we don't go bankrupt like a lot of them have in the past. So it's all the crystal ball and what's possibly going to happen, because none of this is basically numbers. It's what we think could happen. And the more we think what could happen and look at it that it could cost more, I believe we're a lot better off rather than going under.
Philip, I agree with you. And of course, in good finances, they tell you at home, in your personal, you ought to have, 25% of your annual salary in a savings account for emergencies, you lose your job or whatever. I think in business, it's recommended even higher than that because, I've owned several businesses, and I can tell you, getting through the 80s and 90s is something I'll never forget. And you couldn't have saved enough money. And we're the government right now. Our country is teeter-totting on having a recession, and maybe more than that. We're at a national debt level that we've never seen before. We got political atmosphere is terrible. I think anything can happen right now. I think it's a pretty dangerous time, particularly going into an election season that we're going into, to make too many hopes and dreams that maybe it won't be as bad as we don't want it to be. I mean, we don't want it to be bad, but, we gotta be prepared for it. The other, I'll have to study some of the other ones. I don't know about the rest of them, but I don't mind on that. What do you mean, the firefighters? What we talked about the other day, we were gonna give them $500 a month apiece, which is $6,000, which would be 13 of them, that's $78,000 or something. And
I knew we discussed it briefly, I couldn't recall if a decision had been made, so
I think we're all in agreement. We didn't come out and vote on it, but I think that the general consensus was that if we want to take it up again, that's fine, but I didn't know if this was done before or after with that discussion, and
What was
you were
general
thinking.
consensus?
That we give the firefighter, each volunteer fire department $500 a month extra next year, starting next year.
What percentage is that?
I don't know. It was 10% would have been 480. Yeah, so I rounded it up to 500, so it's a little over 10%. And I think that's a good spot. They were asking for 25%. Inflation hadn't hit them at 25%, I don't think, but it probably has hit at least 10 on some of the things they buy. So I'm good there. We can talk about more if y'all want to talk about more, but I was just curious about that number, if that was something that's a new number, or?
that was just what, when they requested the 25%, that's
You just
why I
threw
put
that
it
in
in
there?
there, yeah.
Okay.
So we could see what that number would look like. I do think they probably have more than 10% increase on fuel and equipment and such.
We can have those discussions. I'm not saying, we know we ought to have them. I had a phone call this morning about them. I mean, I wish that we didn't have to do those things, but, I got a call this morning, landowner mad, had a fire. I guess probably Campbell Fire Department responded to it and cut fences, and where livestock was in the fences, and they didn't call the owners. They just drove off and left the fences open and the cows could get out. And they weren't very happy they could have courteously called dispatch. I think we got some ways to contact somebody, call the sheriff's office, send somebody out there or something. They shouldn't just drive off. I don't know that I hold them responsible to fix it, but they should at least notify somebody that we don't want one emergency to call us another one, and the cows get out and the car hit them, and then we got an accident. So I wish, we had a little better, I'm sure they were tired. I'm not bashing them, because thank God they went out there and put it out. So, well, I don't guess I have any other comments at this time.
On as far as road materials, bumping that up, going to $2 million, I agree, we need more money for the precinct. But I don't really think it's a good idea taking $1 million out of ARPA, because that's going to be a reoccurring expense that we have every year. And so next year, you're going to have to, it's going to help us this year, but next year we don't have ARPA, and we're going to have to hit the taxpayers harder than what we're wanting to this year. So I don't think it's a good idea. It's going to look good this year, but future years, it's not going to look too good, I don't think. Am I looking at it wrong?
I don't think so. I think you're looking exactly right.
Well, David, we're in a growth phase, and yes, that requires an increase in the amount spent on government services. But we're going to continue growing, and the budget will continue growing. I think part of what we need to do as a court is to control the rate of growth of government too. Because we don't have our own money. Our money's coming from the people we tax for it. And so we're asking to increase the taxes on people, but we have a way to offset some of those costs to slow that growth this year and keep it from hitting them so hard. I think we should look into that very seriously. I think people are, we have a weird economy, and there is a lot of instability, but everybody, I think, is struggling to make ends meet. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people are, including people who are not typically who in the group that you would expect to see struggling with that. If you go talk with, Wally over at Fish and other people, I think they're similar ministries, Salvation Army. They're seeing a lot more people than they used to for assistance with utilities and rent and such, and they're not the people you would normally expect to see there. So people are struggling. If we're going to raise taxes, I think we should do everything we can to limit the rate of growth of our own government as best as possible. So I don't think it's necessarily the case that if we do this, were to do something like this, that next year we'd have to cut our budget or else raise taxes. What's probably likely to happen is next year we'll have an increase in the tax base and additional revenue from that to fund at a similar rate.
Mark, if you can get a crystal ball and tell us how to explain how this 10-page calculation for how our tax rate's set according to how the state has hit us with it, because I called an attorney over it that teaches the class to fill this out for the comptroller's office, I guess. It takes him 2.5 days to instruct them on how this works. And I asked him point blank, I said, last year we had a difference in no new revenue rate and voter approval rate was a penny. This year it's 5 cents, or almost 5 cents. What do we do here to trigger it to change that one way or the other? And he said, Judge, I wish I could tell you, I can't. It's confusing. Everything you do can affect what this comes out to be. And I said it last year that, you know, you wanted to go no new revenue and I wanted to go up to right under the voter approval, because if we had done no new revenue for several years, 2 or 3 years in a row, if we continue to stay at that low rate, I absolutely know it affects this and drives it down more. And then, you know, you're saying it just right. As we grow, we're going to have to spend more and we may have to raise our tax rate or something. Well, no, what we're doing right now is we got money in the bank. We're paying as we go. We pay cash. If you'll go look at other counties' budgets for this year, I did it over the weekend. You can look at Victoria, or no, I didn't look at Victoria. I looked at Bastrop, Liberty, Kaufman, Hopkins, and Fannin, I think it was. They're all over 40 cents. Some of them well over 40 cents in their tax rate. Some of them are very similar to our size. Some of them aren't. But you know the common theme that made them higher than us? Their INS tax rate. Nearly every one of them was 5 to 7 cents. We're half a cent. So anything we can do not to have to go into debt is a huge win for the taxpayers, because we're not hitting them and we're not asking them, or we're not having to go borrow money to do the things we're doing. And I don't know what your vision is of the future and what all you think we're going to have to do, but we've got to provide services, and if we don't have the personnel and we don't have the facilities, we can't serve them. And that should be, I agree, it's laudable to have a tax rate that keeps going down. I think it's great. But I think it's even bigger, our job, I said it at the last meeting. This court is a board of directors over a $60 million service business, and all we really provide is services for our citizens. In all different areas, we provide services. At some point, we start going down and say, let's dig as deep as we can, go as low as we can, as low as we can, and then we can't come back up because of this. And then we have to start laying people off or cutting services. And that's not a pretty look either. So I think the mission we're on right now, we're paying as we're going, we're taking care of it, we're not borrowing money, we're growing and spending money that we don't have to go to the taxpayers for. We're getting some interest off the money we got that's helped offset some of the cost, and we are the lowest tax rate that I looked at of any other counties around. Doesn't mean that we're as low as we can go. We can go low. We can go lower, but it has consequences down the road. And you got to be more long-sighted than that, foresighted than that. If you look at just today and what can we do today, and you keep doing that, what can we do today? And we all want to help our taxpayers. I'm not opposed to not helping them, but we have helped. We're down 30% in the last 5 years on our tax rate. People argue it's gone up, but if you look at what the difference is, I know that Brent South last year, our chief appraiser, told me that the tax rate at his house, his taxes on his house went down last year.
Went around $900 to $1,100, everybody's did.
Yeah.
That was good.
It was good. It went, you know, with what we did, their taxes went down. So I think I think we've done a good job the last 5 years. I think that, I said it last week, the court before us did a great job of, they had no choices. They didn't have enough money to do anything. They didn't give raises, $500 a year or $1,000 a year. You were lucky if you got it.
Here's a 3%.
Chad, y'all were here. They went years without raises. We've got our staff up to where they're fairly compensated by competitive, looking at it. These other counties, they're all paying about the same as we're paying. We're matching what's going on in Dallas, so we don't train people and they leave us. We're running a pretty good organization. We're almost at full employment. The other day, I think we had 402 people on the payroll, and that's about how many budgeted positions. I think we have like 2 positions or 3 or something. The other day, we checked it last week, probably week before last now. I was out most last week. But it's, you know, I wish that we could charge less, and I wish we could do less, but we got so much to do. We're still digging out of a hole of deferred maintenance on all our buildings, and when we get Puddin Hill up and running, hopefully, we're supposed to be able to bid it right after the first of the year. Hopefully, year, 18 months, we'll be in it. Well, now we got to start retrofitting the courthouse to make it work for other people. What's that going to cost? I don't have a clue. I don't know who's going where yet, what it's going to take. We're going to move everybody out of this building. We're going to have to retrofit it. I don't want to go borrow money to do all that. I want us to have the money so we can do it and do it right, and we can provide the services better for our citizens. And I think that's the tightrope we walk, is do we lower taxes or we provide quality services? And it's a hard rope to walk.
Judge, I don't believe any of these cuts would lower services to the citizens.
There's some of them that, yeah, I agree.
And I agree that we're going to have to increase, let me back up. I agree that we're going to have a lot of expenses in the future. And I'm happy to have a plan that's in writing that we can show the public to show what we're going to be doing with this. But right now, we've got, I think, what is it, a $24 million fund balance. We've got over $12 million in capital improvement. We've got really it's closer to $9 million, I think, when interest is accounted for, of ARPA and interest generated off of ARPA money, still to designate.
I think it's 6, isn't it? ARPA. Yeah. 6 or 7, yeah.
Not counting interest.
Well, the interest is in this budget.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
But that's not our, well, it's our money. It was always set up, that's our interest money. We get it. That was in the law. Any interest earned on it comes, the entity gets to keep it. We just haven't ever moved it out. But we have to by the end of the year, so that's why it's in the budget this year.
Earlier, during the discussions, we talked about in reference to a raise of retirees, and I hear everybody talking about all these other ones that they need to be increased and all that, and if I'm not mistaken, you had come up with a table of saying how much and all this.
I didn't do that. Either Sandy did it or...
Well, it was in court.
Somebody did.
I don't know who brought it up, but it was in court.
I didn't do it personally, but it was done.
Okay, and because of the last time we talked about all this increase of cost of living and all this, and they hadn't been given one since 2007, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's correct. But have y'all looked into that any further, Judge, in reference?
No, I brought it to the court, and nobody had any comment on it, so nobody wanted to talk about it any, so I let it go. I thought that was a no. You want to bring it back up and talk about it, we can.
Well, if we can, that would be good, if we could possibly help them out in it all, but I thought we were supposed to bring it up later after we found out what was going on, and that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah. Maybe I misunderstood it, but I thought I asked it in a way that, are we interested in doing this? And nobody said yes, so I just let it go. But if y'all want to bring it back, y'all want to bring it back up and talk about it, or?
Well, I'm wondering if there is money available.
Well, I understand, Philip, but if I heard him right last time and nobody's changed their mind except you, then I don't know why we bring it back up. So, I mean, I'll do whatever the court wishes.
I thought we'd put it off till later until we looked at stuff. I
Well, that's
apologize
fine.
if
You're-
I'm
you're-
wrong when I said that. But I thought that was what the deal was. You said bring it up later. So we need to look and see what we got.
What's the consensus? You mean, you want to put it on the next agenda? You want, everybody already made up their mind not to do it, or want to talk about it, or whatever?
I'm good for looking into it next year. Because I thought we had already said we kind of pushed it aside this year and said we were going to revisit it next year.
I didn't think we had resolved it.
I really didn't think we
So if Commissioner Martin wants to discuss it, I'm happy to do so.
I'd just like to find out if
That's
we
fine.
possibly do have some funding in reference to it. That's why I'm bringing it up. It
We
was
can talk about it.
my,
I guess today it's in the, it's budgeting talk, but I don't have any of that information with me. I wasn't expecting to talk about it, so I don't even remember what it was. Yeah.
well,
We'll talk about it next meeting, if that's what you want to do, Phil.
Yeah, well-
Everybody's okay with it, that's fine.
well, y'all had a table that y'all were bringing
Yeah,
it out that
I just don't
basically it
have
would
it.
cost so much for so many and then whatever percent, because I didn't get, but we had it talked to it and they said, well, we'll need to talk about it later on toward the end to find out what we've got going. So that's why I brought it up.
What it was the I think what you're talking about is is it TDRS, the retirement, is that right?
No, I'm talking about an increase because we
Let
come
me-
up with
let me talk to you.
2007. I do understand that we'll have to possibly put money in there as far as the retirement, but I was talking about
What I remember about the chart, and it was sent by our retirement system, and if we gave, I think it gave different amounts of, I don't remember if it was percentage or just amounts, but then it told us if we did it and paid it over time, it would raise our rate something, or we could pay.
That was a
we could-
different deal.
No, it's not, Philip. Let me finish. If we wanted to pay for it up front, and then we wouldn't have to pay for it going forward, they had amounts there that we could pay now, and then they would get it for the rest of it would stay there, and we wouldn't have to continue to fund it. And I think at the time, I said, that would be my recommendation, just to fund it now, so it doesn't affect us in the future. When we don't know what the future is, we've got the cash to do it. That was my suggestion, and that's what was in that letter. It was, our rate would go up so much if we did any of them, it would tell you the rate or how much cash you'd take up front to pay for it and not have to increase our rate. So
Well,
I'll get that back out and we can,
I understand that aspect of it. I know what we were talking about on that. What I'm saying is this right here, if y'all would think about a possible raise in reference to cost of living in reference to those retirees that hadn't had one since 2007, I would appreciate if you'd look into it. If we don't have the money, I guess I can accept that. But if we may,
that's fine, Philip, but
please, thank you.
we'll bring it back up. Y'all can look in your packets too. I'll look, Jess, just don't forget to find that, probably in an email. If not, it's in one of our agendas, probably 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago or something. All right, anything else on that?
Yeah, just to wrap it up, I hear what you're saying about need to plan for these things. I'm all in favor of that. I just don't think we have a plan right now we can show to the taxpayers and say, we are raising your taxes for this project. I know we've got architects that are working on it. We've got engineers working on it. Maybe we'll have that in the future, but right now we do not have it. And so I think it's not fair to the taxpayers to increase their burden in this time.
We're not raising taxes to pay for anything that has to do with Puddin Hill or architects or anything. We're using capital improvement money that's been set aside, or some of it's coming out of ARPA funding. So it's not, we're not raising any taxes to pay for it. We're using the cash we have. And I'm not sure, I'm going to back up on something else you said, and y'all can maybe
But
maybe
we're,
Mary
we're-
knows or Stacy would know, I think it got put in the budget book as 28 million cash in general operating. But when we did Robert Lake gave the presentation of her financial statement from the previous year, he broke it out and said that there's whatever was in capital improvement at the end of last year, I think it was 16 or 17 million dollars or some number like that. And then there was like 15 or 16 in our cash. And he said that we could, because we control capital improvement, we could move it back. That's our total cash. I don't think it's 28 plus 12. I think, am I right, Mary, or? That's excluding the capital improvement. Okay, yeah, so she's, this, I haven't seen this yet, I don't think. Is this what you gave me the other day and I didn't have time to look at it before I went out of town? Or is this something since I? Okay. So there's a projected balance at the end of the year would be 23.8. And so it would be the 23.8 plus whatever's in capital improvement. So that would be right then. Are we going to break it?
Well, I would.
That's fine.
That's fine. I don't want to belabor the point. We can move on. But I would, before doing so, just point out, yes, it is true that that's money already there. But I think we should be using that to control costs elsewhere that are funded by new tax rates. If you put money, if you reduce the commissioners' budgets, even you just say keep them, the road materials budget where it is in the current fiscal year, just for instance, I don't have that breakdown in front of me. And then move some to capital improvement to a road fund for major upgrades and repairs, that is not negatively impact next year's tax rate. That allows us to use money we already have. It's already taxed from them, either by actual taxes or inflation, in the case of money from the federal government. That's already there we can use to fund some of these major projects so they don't hit the tax rate in the future out of their regular budgets. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Anything else? All right.
I want to point one thing. Understand that it is not everything as printed is going to happen. We have to realize that basically we have to be putting money back in order to take care of things that we're not aware of. And that's what we've been doing. And that's important for us to keep on doing positive like we are at this time.
There has to be a limit to that, Philip.
I understand that, but I tell you what, you tell me what your crystal ball says about the limit.
All right.
I'm not the one who's using the crystal ball reference. I'm looking back at numbers and trying to make a good, educated decision on that.
Yeah, but you're basing on the past, not the future, is what he's saying. And there's, statistically, there's a chance we're going to have a real bad year every 7 years, I think is what they tell us. So, and we hadn't had one in a while, so we're due some. All right, action item 2, public hearing and discussion of proposed FY 2024-2025 tax rate. This time I'll open it up to public testimony. Anybody wish to speak for or against this? Being none, I'll close the public hearing. Do we need to talk any more? Everybody okay where we're at right now? We've kind of discussed it all, so.
Can't separate the tax rate and budget discussions, so.
Do I now?
Well, the tax rate and budget discussions go together, so.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We kind of talked about all of it, so if everybody's okay, we'll move on. Take that as a yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Action item number 3, discuss and potentially take action on retaining real estate professional to appraise real estate owned by Hunt County and perform related services pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 2254.002. Commissioners, I had a call from Gary Pickens, who we had his mother's 100th celebration and proclamation a few years ago. He is a real estate broker in Dallas. He deals with large properties and manages large properties. And he called me while I was in Austin, and he said that he was seeing something he'd never seen before, and that was, he thinks it's because of the election coming up, but big money are chasing lease buildings that have strong tenants in them, and they're paying higher numbers than he'd ever seen before. And he was suggesting if we ever wanted to sell the Exchange building, it'd be an excellent time to do it. I don't know, I've talked to him on and off about that in our discussions. As y'all know, he's a longtime friend of mine. But I don't know, sitting here today, what that looks like. I don't know if it's worth $2 million or $10 million. I don't know. But I think it would be appropriate, it's not really an appraisal, but it's broker price opinion that brokers use all the time in evaluating properties. And I don't have a contract number in mind. I can get him to do us a proposal if we're willing to even listen to it. If nobody wants to listen to it, then we'll forget about it and move on. But it's another way to, at some point, I'm not sure we should be in the business of being a landlord on that kind of a facility. If they're in our own facilities, that's fine. And it's served us well. They got a great buy on it. It's been paid back off. It's making us a little bit of money, of which I won't talk about it now. We've already passed by. But the Exchange building in its own budget, it's funded totally by leases. All the money spent out of there is spent out of the revenue that comes into it. But it could give us, a good shot in the arm, and it might help to alleviate at least my concerns that we keep paying for everything as we go. It's up to y'all. I don't have heartburn one way or the other, but
I'd ask him to get some numbers, put a proposal together, and then we can kind of discuss it from there.
I'm guessing it'll be something under $5,000 is probably what he's going to ask for. So, in my experience in the past, they usually ran between $2,000 and $5,000 for something like that. If y'all are,
I'm not opposed to hearing more information about it. I mean, cautiously, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but
yeah,
more information is better than less.
I don't either, Mark. I don't have a heartburn one way or the other. But I think we should at least know. I guess that's where I'm coming from. And if it surprises us what the number is, then we might need to look at it. If it's not much, then we don't need to fool with it. I guess the way I'm looking at it. So
I'm kind of wondering this right here, we don't know what the future is. We own that building, we're making money off it, it's changed itself. Basically, I thought at one time we were possibly going to move offices over to it. We already have the first floor. When we rented it from Greenville, we were paying them, and then we owned it, and I guess it's keeping downtown alive. I myself, you can look into it, but I don't know why we're even doing it if we hadn't planned on selling it right now anyway. But we have so much construction and possibilities of what's going on at Mary Puddin Hill. Also moving all these other offices over there, and we hadn't even started the building. In reference to the jail, we're looking at it also. Basically, a lot of times this is good to have in case something does happen that we're not projecting. I didn't know it was for sale.
I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So
he just said it was a great time if we ever wanted to do it, and I said, well, I'll get it on the agenda and we can talk about it. That's.
Well, like I said, hey, if we decide to sell it, we can look him up and have it. But in fact, I didn't know what property this was going to be in reference to whatever. And I'm not going into that discussion of what property is owned. But I didn't know that I didn't know what building this referred to or what property it did, to be quite. But like I said, at least we have a way or somewhere to go if we have to have it, if this other takes 2 to 3 years. So,
Really,
I mean, that's
we really
it.
don't. I mean, we got some long-term leases that have, some of them have renewals, automatic renewals in it if they choose to.
No,
So, I mean, it's not really, that's the problem. It's leased. If we wanted to use it, we really can't for some period of time.
How much-
And besides that, the thing we started out with the Puddin' Hill and all is the city didn't want us buying the building across the street from the courthouse. They didn't want us downtown. There's too much problems with parking, and Becky's had argument, or had people upset having to come through, find a parking spot and then come through security to get up to go get a marriage license or birth certificate or something. And I understand that, but I think it's gonna be more convenient if being out there, and then we got enough land to build a campus out there, if that's what the future is. And like I said, I'm not pushing it one way or the other. I'm just bringing it to your attention, and we can talk about it, and everybody can decide what they want to decide.
I'd like to know what it's worth.
All right, well, I'll get with him and see if we can get some kind of a proposal and bring it back next week, and then we can go from there, and everybody can decide what they want to do. Like I said, I'm not asking or pushing for it one way or the other. Action item 4, the upgrade of approximately 1,145 feet of County Road 1049 from rock to oil sand in Precinct 1 at county's expense.
Make a motion, we approve this upgrade.
Second.
Got a motion second, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Action item 5, discuss and possibly take action on sending a letter to TCEQ opposing mud subdivision Wildflower in Josephine in Hunt County. Entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action item 6, discuss and possibly take action on sending a letter to TCEQ opposing mud subdivision Bishop Field 2 LLC in Portree in Hunt County. Entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Action item 7 is a repeat. We don't need to discuss that anymore. Aaron, did y'all need to talk anything to us in executive session? We do? All right, I entertain a motion to go in executive session under items 1 through 4.
So move.
second.
Got a motion second, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We're in executive session at 10:53.
Shows we're back up.
All right, it's 10:59, we're back in regular session. Is there anything else before the court today?
Yes, Judge, my understanding is next week, we're going to hear a report from Grant Works, is that correct? Is that good?
I haven't seen the email yet. I had asked them to come, and they were getting that together. Apparently, Jessica told me something came in while I was gone, and I hadn't had time to even look at it, but I assume they will be coming if we ask them. And I think we talked about coming in the second meeting, because I thought it was going to take them, they act like it was going to take more time to get that information to us. And I guess we got the information they requested from us quick enough that they were able to get it quicker than they thought they were going to be able to. But I haven't read it, but we'll get them here if we can.
Sure. Either way, I'd like to request that we put the discussion of the radio committee report on next session, agenda rather. Whether we have a report from Grant Works or not, I would like to talk about AMR and their plans moving forward. There were some things said last week about them I would like to clarify, but need an agenda item to do so.
Okay. All right, anything else? Jess, you write that down, the radio project. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 11 o'clock. Thank you, everyone.